some kind of specific way. Should I explain it in abstract or not?
Depends how long you need to explain it. Like you can really mention if it's important for understanding the article that you're using it.
Maybe it's important
maybe you
to
have an
attract
introductory
attention.
sentence saying, in this article we use this notion in order to, in this way, in order to. If it's important for understanding the article, yes.
If it fits in 2 lines, for example, it's
Yes.
okay?
I suppose, yes.
It seems,
Yes.
that the abstract should be a written conclusion of the article.
It's the last thing you write.
Okay.
Very last, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You have everything ready, the last thing you write is the abstract and the title. That's a really, really very, very last. I have it exactly here. First thing you write is the methods and the results. During your research, the introduction and the discussion, you do it after you know where you're submitting to, when you're sure, 100%. And you write, very, very last, you write the abstract, and these are already perfect, and then you think at that. So here are some tools I just wanted to mention in case you don't know it or you're not acquainted to them. First, we start from the bottom, so I mentioned how important the quality of the language is, that it's clear, that the editors can easily understand what your article is about. So we know that's a very important point for many authors from many countries. So we did a cooperation with the language editing service, which is called Edans. So anyone submitting to a Springer journal can get a 10% discount on special services. It can be either language editing on the whole chapter or a whole paper, or even only the abstract or so. And if you're interested in more training or more information, there is also the Springer Author Academy. This is just a free service on our homepage. It's a couple of learning materials, like for journal authors. There are more hints of in the same direction of what I just said with the article, the abstract, how to write, how to structure the article. So it goes more into detail. It's usually like 10-15 minutes training module. So if you're interested, you can, of course, make use of it. It's for books. There are different sections, so you can choose the book author, the English Language Academies, information about open access, and so on. So now something about the submission. Let's say you found the right journal, you're happy, you did your research, now it's time to start. Some do's and don'ts for submission. Do not, okay, the first one is clear, we just talked about it, we had it when you choose the journal, it's when you're already writing, so do not start if I want to submit tomorrow, now I'll start wrapping up my research and handing it in. It usually doesn't work. Ask your colleagues, that's what I mentioned before, use your network when you're choosing the journal, but use it also when you've written your article. Ask them to proofread it, ask them to check it, to do some peer reviewing before you really submit the article to a journal. Ask them to check the language if you're not sure or you don't feel confident enough. So really use your network. And it's very common, so this time you ask them, next time they will ask you. What I mentioned before, know the journal you're submitting to, so try to read the guidelines very carefully. If they ask for an abstract, hand in an abstract. Know what the journal wants. And then the last one will be to prepare a strong cover letter. Try to explain already in the cover letter, it doesn't have to be 5 pages, which no one will read, but like a few lines explaining why your article fits the journal, why your article is good, what's original in your article. So try to be convincing in your cover letter. Very often editors receive, "Dear editor, please find attached my article, thank you for your consideration." That's not a strong cover letter. Doesn't mean that it won't be accepted, of course. If the article is good, it's good. But it helps to write a strong cover letter. And another thing, if you have no clue where you want to submit, don't contact the publisher and don't contact random editors or random editorial board members to, with your article to ask them where you should submit. Because very often you won't get a reply. So like, to make an example, if I am asked by an author working in physics, sending me his article and asking me where I should submit, to be honest, I have no idea. It's not my field, it's not, I don't know the journals. We have 2,500 journals, so I suppose the author is much more experienced in his field, in his area. He knows what's going on. So we cannot help. And there are so many submissions that if everyone would do that, it would be overwhelming. But that's like, if then you're not sure or have a specific question, of course you're welcome to contact the editors. But just for asking them in which journal you should publish, that's usually not how it is done. So I mentioned the importance of the journal guidelines. That's how a journal homepage would look like. We have the aims and scope. You can read it here, but usually it's like down here. If you scroll down, there is a text with the aims and scope, the topic the journal accepts. There is a list of the editorial board. The editors are also listed here. If it has an impact factor, you would see it here. So it's always stated when the journal has an impact factor. And most importantly, this is the section you should look at before submitting. And just a hint, which is not obvious, but it's also to check the submit online section, or how to submit. I mean, this is a Springer page. For other publishers, it will be called differently, but mainly the submit section, because very often there are some useful information for authors hidden there. So some things that maybe should be better placed in the instruction for authors, sometimes are hidden in the submit. So you find out when you submit that, oh, actually the abstract should be only 200 words. So it's worth to have a click more and be sure. Yes, that's another very important topic about ethics. So there are some rules in writing and submitting. And I summarize, I think, the main one. They are always in the submit online section. So the author, each time you have to hand in, you are informed again. Be sure to read these rules. They're the same for everyone, so these are international rules. So the first thing to consider is the work has not been published before. So the article you're submitting should be new. It's not something you published yesterday in another journal and today you want to publish somewhere else, just changing a few lines. It should be new. It is not under consideration anywhere else. This means that you're not submitting to multiple journals. So you're not submitting to a Springer journal, to a Frontiers, and then to Nature at the same time. Exactly. You can do it after, yes, but at the same time, you should not submit your paper to many journals. This is considered to be very unethical, and very often they find out. So very often, especially if it's a specific topic or a very special topic, sometimes you contact the same peer reviewers, and they ask, I just got the same paper from Nature, what's going on here? So very often you find out. And that leads to a rejection usually, and is considered to be very unethical. So it also harms your reputation. It's not very good. Of course, if you're not accepted in one journal, you're more than welcome to resubmit somewhere else. So that's clear, but not at the same time. And this is, I think, kind of obvious. Everyone agrees. So if you have two co-authors, everyone is happy with the decision of submitting to this or to that journal. If it's a research done with a university or with a company agrees, the university is happy that you submitted to that journal, so everyone is on board. This is more in the legal direction, so the last three, they can cause a lot of trouble. The first one is to obtain permissions. So if you use material which has been published somewhere else or is not your material, be sure to have all the permissions. So check the original publication. Usually it should be written who has the copyright. And if you go to the publisher's site, they always have a section like rights and permissions, where you can also download permission forms which can be used to ask request a permission. You should get it very quickly. It's a very common thing, so usually it takes sometimes 1 day, sometimes 1 week, but it is a very quick thing to do. But it's something you have to take care of. And also when publishing, you will be asked to sign an agreement in which it states that you obtained all permissions. So if you haven't, and then someone is, oh, but that's published somewhere else, and we get, you might have to pay a fine at the end. That's not nice. And then, of course, plagiarism and data fabrication. Plagiarism means don't copy the work of someone else, cite the other people. So if you're using results or research done by someone else, cite this person, cite this research, make sure that that everyone knows that it's not yours. So don't say the used research of other people, make it yours. And of course, don't fabricate data, don't falsificate data, don't play with the data so that, it fits my results, no, it's fine, or this I haven't seen it. So be honest. So after you considered all of that, you submitted your manuscript, and now it goes to peer review. What's peer review? Peer review is basically the process of having your article checked by another expert. So it's a colleague of yours, that's why it's called peer review. And they check your articles, they evaluate the soundness of the research, the methodology used, and they give you some advice, and especially they advise the editorial board whether to publish or not the article in the journal. And why do we do peer review is to make sure that the quality of the journal remains high. So all articles are usually very, very technical, very specific. You have to ask the experts in that area to give you advice on whether it's good or not. So peer review can be quite frustrating. It can take a long time, and it doesn't always turn out well. So here is some advice on how to cope with it. First of all, try to take it the positive way. This is really an integral part of the publishing process, and it's meant in a good way. No one wants to harm you, no one wants to harm your research or put you down. Take it as a positive advice. So take it the positive way. This is a help you get, and it's meant, and it helps you to improve your article and to improve your work for the future. So don't think they're all enemies behind that. You will be asked, if you get comments from a reviewer, you will be asked to write some kind of response letter or to address these comments and say what you think about that. One important thing to consider is to address all comments. So you might also not agree with the peer reviewer. They will ask you to change something, and you send in the manuscript again. When you send it again, explain clearly what you changed in response to this review and what you didn't change. So if you don't agree with someone, you can say, oh, these comments are very good, but this, no. This is my research, I know better. Don't just ignore it in your response, but explain why you decided not to change it and not to follow the advice you got. Because that's very legitimate, they are not gods, so the peer reviewers can make a mistake or maybe have other ideas. So if it's if there is sound reasons behind that, why not? But tell the publishers, tell the editors why. You often ask for minor revisions. Minor revisions do not necessarily mean that your article will be accepted. So also be aware of that. And of course, don't be disappointed if your article is rejected. This happens a lot. It is very common. It doesn't necessarily mean that your work is not good enough. Maybe it's not just right for the journal. So don't take it personally, and know that it will change in the future, and the next time it will be accepted. But try not to take it personally. And the last thing, don't argue or fight about the comments. So as I said, you're welcome to motivate your reasons and explain why you don't agree with the reviewers when you hand in any version. But in case your article is rejected or so, don't fight about that. At the end, it's not the reviewer who decides whether the article is accepted or not. It's the editor-in-chief or the editorial board to take the final decision. And if you fight for that, this will not change your decision in 99% of cases, and it's just a loss of time. One thing I didn't mention, forgot earlier, is the way peer review is done. It's usually a blind review, so there are two main streets, I would say, the principal ways it is done. The first is called single blind. This means that the reviewer knows the identity of the author. So here's the author XX, and he knows. But the comments are given to the author in an anonymous way. So the author doesn't know who the reviewer is. And the double blind way is basically that both the identity of the reviewer as well as the identity of the author are hidden. So no one knows, the reviewer doesn't know the identity of the author and the other way around. There are believers of the one, of the other way. There are different theories behind it. Sometimes it's useful to know who the author is because this helps evaluating also the background if you know what kind of research is doing. Others think it's very unethical to know the author because maybe there are personal reasons to give a bad feedback. So there are many, many discussions around that, and journals do it in a different way, and it also dependent on the topic, on the subject area. So in subject area, the double blind is more common, but this is usually stated on the webpage. What I learned during this trip is actually that, for example, Frontiers, they disclose the identity of the reviewer after publication. So after publication, the author knows who reviewed the paper. That's also interesting. And yeah, I don't have to stay here too long. As I mentioned, authors are very often asked to review and to revise the paper. That's normal, so don't take it as a rejection. I think in 90% of the cases you ask, it's very rare that an article is just accepted the way it is. So that's normal. And these are the main decisions of the editorial board. As I mentioned, it's not the reviewer, it's the editor. So it can go from complete rejection up to acceptance with major or minor regions. Very often they tell you also, they give you some kind of hint whether your article will be accepted or not. So very often they tell you accept it with revisions, or they kind of let you know that if you apply these revisions then okay, you will be publishing it, or they let you know whether it's not necessary that you resubmit, like a kind of nice rejection. So be aware of these hidden messages when you get your reply. I won't tell anything about this question, but the basic idea is that this is a checklist for reviewers. So usually the publisher or the editors send the article to peer review together with a checklist. So the peer reviewer has a list to go through, a couple of questions to answer in regard to the journal article. This is just an example, so it's very general questions, which can be used. It's not an absolute checklist, but it's just a good example, I think. And if you're interested, I mean, you can take it or copy it down, and when you write your own article, you can try to answer these questions and see if you're able to answer them or not, and what are the chances that your article can survive the peer review process, or in which way. If you ask, for example, a colleague to take a look or to review your work, you can also give him this list, for example. I think that experienced peer reviewers already know more or less what to look at. But that's just an example. So something about the timeline, we've seen before that authors really care about how quickly the research is published. We say that it's about 3 to 12 months. I would say not to publication, but to the final decision. This can be a realistic timeline. So it takes long. This is a very, very rough indication, so don't take it as a golden rule. Some journals take forever, other journals are much faster. So there are many, many reasons behind that. It may be that they're overwhelmed with submissions. It may be that it's very difficult difficult to find peer reviewers. Maybe your topic is so specific, or it's conference season, everyone is busy with other reviewing and with other writing, so sometimes it takes really 2-3 months just to find a person who reviews the paper. So there are many reasons behind that, but that's just a rough guideline. That's the process. I basically already described it. So let's start. You submit your article. In case, for example, at Springer, but I think many other publishers, before it goes to the editor-in-chief, there is a first technical check by our colleagues. So they look that everything is complete, and that it's not in Chinese, for example, or Russian in case of a journal which publishes only English language. So they look that all technical aspects are fulfilled, and only then it goes to the editor-in-chief. The editor-in-chief assigns someone from the editorial board, so he says, oh, that's this topic, I will ask Federica to take a look at it and to take care of that. And that's someone from the editorial board. They can decide whether to reject it directly, if it just doesn't fit the journal, or there are very obvious reasons for it to do so. But in most cases, they will ask peer reviewers. They will start selecting peer reviewers and sourcing them and writing to them. Peer reviewers will answer. They will check the paper, and you will be asked to revise your manuscript and to resubmit. You will send it back, and ideally it's accepted, or unfortunately rejected, but usually it's accepted, and it goes to publication. There are even cases where you're asked to revise it again. That happens. It's not necessarily bad, maybe it's just minor revisions, adjust these 2 things, and then it's done, but it happens. And ideally it goes into publication. So that would be a good time for questions. I still have some slides about the books, but I'm finishing the journal topic here, so if you have, you're welcome to ask later. Sorry?
Everything is clear.
Okay, so we go to the...
Maybe I want.
Yes.
Fortunately, last weekend I spent reading Springer website, looking for language instruction, and there is English Academy section at the site, but it contains quite basic rules about language. There is nothing specific. For example, how I should use punctuation, and I should spell correctly and consistently UK or British in English. That's all, in fact. Does it mean that there is no specific things in the journal instead? Because when I read the pages of journal, I found just a link to the common section, nothing specific.
You mean, for example, whether it should be British or American English or so, or really how to write more?
Maybe more detailed instruction. More detailed instruction. Concerning English, the way you should write.
Okay.
Cliché or
For example, how to use hyphen and em dash, so such stuff.
That should be there.
But there is no.
No, I think this is more, light copy editing, like punctuation and some things that can be corrected by an editor. These are done also by Springer after publication. But on general writing, like how to punctuation and so, no, probably there's not the website.
So the most frequently used cliché, so-called expressions, common expressions, cliché. The style, the style is also.
No, there is not.
Style remarks.
No, it's just not there. It's there is not. We're planning to do more, also face-to-face, maybe some workshops, maybe about scientific writing. But that's what we have online.
So I hope.
And I have some material, not here, but I can gather it see some more details which have been prepared. Actually, it's a couple of slides which have been prepared by this Adams. So this is something I can share, but I'm not sure if it's enough. So,
I hope that such kind of stuff, for example, hyphen and dash, some kind of usage, it is not a ground to reject my paper.
no, this kind of stuff is not. I mean, I think the ground to reject a paper is really if the language is poor and it's difficult to understand what's going on. If it starts being difficult for the editors and they have to interpret the work, then they get lazy and they say, well, you know what, this article is so easy to understand. So I think that's mostly the reason. And also, if the English is good, but it's written in a very, that you can't really read it, maybe it's too tiny characters or too many figures in it, you know, also clear formatting. This also helps a lot because it makes it nice to see, nice to read. You're already positively exposed to this text. But so tiny things like where the hyphen of dash, that's something that actually our teams corrects later. There is a standard layout. So it's we have even rules about British English or American English. They change that in case, or the reference style. They also check that the reference style fits and so on. So this technical stuff shouldn't be a problem. So, just a few words about the books. Books are very different from journals. I think most of you already know that. That's kind of clear. A book is mainly a presentation of a topic. It's a complete scholarly work. So it tries to give an overview. It's not a very specific application or very specific research usually, but it's a complete scholarly work. In case of edited volumes, book chapters, an edited volume is a book where many authors contribute a chapter, and it's edited by a team. So there is 1, 2, or 3 editors who take care of inviting the authors. That's similar to a journal. And the chapters have a similar role as those of a review paper, with the difference that in a journal the articles are not related to each other, so there is no clear indication why this should be article 1 and this is point 3. While in a book, the chapters are related to each other, so we try to really write the whole work, which should be read from beginning to end. There is a structure and so on. And of course, books include a lot of exercises, in case of textbooks, have recommended readings, include a lot of elements which are not present usually in journals. I'm sorry for that, but mainly there are many different types of books which have different purposes. I will only spend a few words about these types. This one is a very Springer-specific format, but it's interesting because it shows how also the book publishing landscape is changing, how the way of publishing a book is changing. That's why I want to spend a few words on that. But the rest is type of books generally that are well known, and these I won't spend time on that. I think they are self-explanatory and it's not the most common types of books. So, of course, the monograph. Monograph means that it's one author, one or more author, so it's not every single chapter is written by them. It's a presentation of a field or of a specific topic, and it usually includes some new results. So there is some novelty in it, but it's a presentation of the field. Textbooks are very similar in the aspect that they are written, they are authored works, as we call them. So they are written by one or more authors. It's not a contributed work. And they have a didactical scope, they are used in classes, they are used in universities, they have different levels, they can be a very basic introduction, they can be for a more advanced student or so. And usually the characteristic of textbooks is that they also include a lot of examples and exercises. Not all textbooks include exercises, but I would say that most of them do. And the contributed volume is what I just explained before, so it's a collection of chapters of different authors, and you try to have it a unique format for that. Then we have the proceedings, which are again a collection of chapters, but it's a collection of papers which have been presented at the conference and then are published in format of a book. Springer is very well known for one specific series, which is the lecture notes in computer science. So computer scientists know that series. And it's a proceeding series, and it publishes over 120 or so books a year. So it's very impressive, I think. And then there are professional texts. Professional texts are very similar to a textbook in a sense. So they have a didactical scope, but they're aimed at professionals, so at people who have concrete experience in a field. And that's the main difference. So they don't have an academic scope. They don't want to teach this, but maybe it's someone who has practical experience but doesn't have the academic background to do that. And he only does need to learn some specific things. He doesn't need to learn all the basics of the whole field. So it's very tailored to the kind of professional. And for example, I am in the business economics department, so I know that, for example, in business, we have quite a lot of this type of books. I imagine also for other areas, I just know for there. For example, for consulting companies, for finance, so there are many, very often this type of books. And then the Springer Breeze, which I mentioned is a Springer-specific format, but it's a format which is, we can see, is growing around, and there are also other publishers who start doing that. And that's basically a fast publication, a short publication. It's between 50 and 125 pages in our case. And the idea behind it is that a book shouldn't be something heavy, something, oh God, it's a monograph, that's so far away, I will write it when I'm 80, and it's the memories of my life. But it should be something easy to do. And it's something in between a review article and a monograph. So very fast publication, it can be a very new topic, a very young topic, a specific application. And that's the basic idea. And that's a format which is going very, very well. Also with students, like we have mini textbooks, because sometimes like we have a tiny handbook of R, or really very short textbook with some on it, or just specific applications of a topic. And now just a few words about book series. A book series is very similar to a journal in the sense that it's a collection of volumes on a specific topic. In contrast, it would be the standalone publication. A standalone publication means a book which is published, peer-reviewed, but it's not published within a series, so it's alone. The difference between book series and journals is mainly that there is no best choice. Like, if your manuscript is not accepted in a book series, it doesn't mean that your manuscript is bad. It means that the book series is not the right place. Maybe it should be published as a standalone. Maybe it should be published in another series. Book series has very, very often super specific requirements, like it should have exercises, but you plan to write a book without exercises. Okay, then it's not the right place. So in this case, it's really the contrary of what I told you before with journals. Ask the editor and ask the publisher. That's really, the publisher is usually like the publishing editor, someone like me or someone else at Springer, is in touch with the editorial board. So we know what the editors want, and very often we can guess, it's the right place, I think the other series is better for that, or I think a standalone would be enough. So here really contact the publisher and discuss it with them. And here again, that's where usually the publishing editor helps. So if you have a good topic, well, I'm not sure in which form to write, feel free to contact the editor, feel free to ask questions, feel free to bother them with 1,000 emails a day. They are there for that, that's a job. And once you decided more or less what you want to write, that's how a book proposal would look like. Usually publishers send you a book proposal form, so there is some kind of guidelines on what they want to see, that's very specific. But the core elements are these, always in each form, I think. basically a description of the book. So what you're planning to write, what the topic, what's the audience, is it a textbook, is it a monograph, are you planning to invite hundreds of authors, will it be 1,500 pages covering only tiny detail of the field or just a quick overview, so this type of things. A table of contents, so how are you planning to structure it and why that makes sense in this way, and like describing a little bit what you write in a chapter. Of course, information about the authors or about the editors, depending on what type of books it is, and the contributors, and something about the writing schedule, so when are you planning to do what. That doesn't need to be 100% final, but it's usually very useful also for us and for the reviewers to have a rough idea to how organize our work. So usually we try to agree on a schedule, and we use also the schedule for promotion purposes. So if we know, oh, this book we're planning to publish it in 1.5 years, there is this great conference, we can use that also for making sure that the book will be present at the conference, will be advertised, we put out some flyers. So the schedule is in this sense, but we usually agree with the authors. And yeah, here it's a very full slide, but the process is basically the same as for journals. So you submit your manuscript, you have a proposal in this case. This is reviewed by editors or by external reviewers, depends on the quantity of the material you're sending in. And also there are different traditions in book reviewing in different subject areas. So I know, for example, the mathematicians are very, very strict. They review it 2-3 times. First when a sample chapters are there, then when the final book is there, and then they spend a lot of time on it. Other subject areas are quicker. So it depends. And then ideally you continue writing, and when the book is finished, you submit the final manuscript. And the idea is that you shouldn't take care of anything else, but that's the job of the publishers. So the publisher should take care of really typesetting it, or doing some like copy editing, making sure that the quality of the figures is fine, that the reference style is consistent, that the writing style is consistent, and so on. So that's really, you shouldn't take care of anything. And you will get some, here it's written print proofs, but actually it's online proofs. You get a PDF of the final manuscript before it goes to print and before it's published, and you can see, oh, everything is nice, I like it, or I want to change here and there, and then it's published. So yes, formatting and the typesetting is the job of the publisher. The different formats it will come out, PDF, HTML, print book, that's the job of the publisher. And 2 things to highlight is that publishing is free of charge, so you won't be asked for money at Springer. Yes?
Can you suggest the style of design or how?
I
Can
couldn't.
you suggest a design or typography or style as an author, or is that just completely up to you?
Usually it's up to the publisher. So we have some guidelines and we have some templates. But we don't really accept like special designs or so. No, that's kind of a standardized way, and also our books, like if it falls into a series, also series have a design so that all books look the same, otherwise you would have very different books. So we try to maintain some kind of consistency. But like if you plan to include special figures or figures that need to be printed in color, we do that, of course. For standalone publications, we can include like a nice figure on the cover. So these are the options. But the formatting style is, we try to maintain a consistent way. And yeah, of course, publishing is free. So unless, okay, open access is a topic for itself, but you won't be asked to pay. That's good. You get complimentary copies and a lifelong discount. So that's Springer authors have a lifelong discount of 33%, even if they publish once with us. And here is something about dissemination. So how will you present your work to the world? How does it go out? First format I mentioned at the beginning, Springer is a digital publisher, is an e-publisher, so the first thing that comes out is the e-book. few weeks later, like 1 or 2 weeks later, the print book is available, it's published, and we publish with POD, so print on demand or print to order here. Print on demand means that the book is printed when the customer buys it or when the customer asks for it. And the main benefit is this means that the book is always available. It never goes out of print. We have the files. If someone in China, in America wants it, we print it in China or in America. China, not in America. And they can just order. And then there is the My Copy version, which is a soft cover version available only for institutions who subscribe to our content, so we already have access online. And it's a soft cover, black and white version of any book, and there is a flat cost, which is $24.99, so it's very convenient for students. Each book costs $24.99, there are no different prices. The only problem is that it's not available in Russia yet, but it's something my colleagues are working on, and it will be available very soon. So I thought it was worth mentioning because it's coming. And here, of course, something about dissemination, and we go to a lot of conferences and try to make sure that all books are well advertised and well placed. We are present, of course, in Amazon, iBooks, we have Springer links, so the ebooks and so on very well represented. We have many companies also subscribing to our packages more and more for R&D departments, and of course the major academic institutions. And this is my contact, so if you have questions or so, you're welcome also to write me on another day or another year.
Well, my question is related to journal articles and copyright. As I'm newbie in this field, I would like to ask what is kind of common sense in relationships between the publishing house, maybe a journal, and group of authors in different cases. In case of open access, in case when you pay the journal, in case when journal pays to you for publishing. What is about copyrights?
So who has the copyright, you mean? Well, in case of open access, it's usually the author who retains the copyright. So the copyright stays there, and it falls under this Creative Commons license or so. And usually you have the right to use it by citing correctly, but you shouldn't ask for permission to use enough open access. The standard, like the traditional publishing, I would say that any copyright goes to the publishing house. So usually you should ask the publisher. And there is what I mentioned before, that there is always a rights and licenses section that you can ask. They give you a form and they ask you to give the title of the article, the SSN, when did it appear, and what do you want to use. You send this email to a general rights at .com or elsevier.com or so, and then you get a reply and they say yes. That's the basic procedure, but at least you have it right. And I would say that, or it's free available, but also you can usually it's either with the author, the copyright, or with the publisher. And it's always written, it should always be clearly stated how you can get the copyright. And if you're not sure, ask the publisher. That's really the best way you can do it. Just call them or write an email, and they know how to do that. For open access, it should be free. And if it's your illustration that you publish, sometimes you also have to ask if you can reuse it. That's tricky, not always, but check it out, because sometimes they have to ask, oh, I want to reuse it there. No one will tell you no, but sometimes you have to ask. But usually if your own illustration and you just change formatting or something, then it falls into this gray zone where no one can tell you anything, and it's yours, of course.
What's about the abstract and the first page of your article? Do you have to ask for permission from, for example, you publisher to use
But my idea would be that the abstract is usually available anyway. You can't put the full text.
Yes,
But the abstract is usually free anywhere. So I think that actually the abstract you should be able to download, to upload there with a link then to the final
just
certification.
show how to advertise to have link to your publishing house website.
Yes.
Just to announce.
Yes,
Advertise it.
the abstract you should be able to use. I will check in the guidelines also, unless they state something contrary, but I don't see why something like that. But it should be. I don't see a problem. Yes?
I didn't hear anything about royalties. Any royalties in the books?
Sorry?
Royalties.
Yes.
Any royalties in the books?
It depends. There are different models. The one which is used more and more actually is to pay a flat fee to the authors. So a one-time payment when the book is published. And the reason behind it is that I don't know how other publishers act. I can only talk for Springer. But the reason behind this is that in the past we have been giving royalties. That was a traditional model. But now more and more people access the book actually online. And it's very difficult to measure the usage. So it's very difficult to pay the author a fair way if less print copies are sold, because more people access it through the university account, so at the library. So we see that royalties we can pay less because the print sales are not so much. So that's why we now do the...
What's the magnitude of that payment from?
That depends. I mean, it's something to compensate the royalties and to compensate the YouTube downloads. I would have to, I can't tell. It depends on the type of the book, on the subject areas. It depends on the yes.
That has what interesting scopes or science journals and books. So, for example, a book about books, it's usually like we published, it's having all the guidelines from Springer. But we didn't have clear answer whether it actually would be afterwards English scopes science. Because I think it is not actually decided only afterwards in the section.
Yes. If it's a standalone, yes, we submit it after. If it's in the series, which is already indexed, it goes with it.
So it's
Either it could be
guarantee on if it's in series, right?
if it's in a series which is indexed, yes, that's usually a guarantee. Like the lecture notes in computer science or so.
Yes, like persistency, so, but action is long, so there's no.
And Scopus, it should go into Scopus. With Web of Science, it's difficult. Web of Science is very picky. To be honest, so Web of Science is difficult to get it.
But the possibility is not high. How do you evaluate it?
I would say with Scopus, I'm positive. I mean, I'm promising, but I think it's doable. Web of Science, I don't know.
Questionable.
Huh?
Questionable.
Yes, but it's just, let's go with that. It's a proceedings or
It was the same, but it's an editing.
a collected work?
Any other questions? So I think we cleaned the form. So just I need to tell a few words, just to thank our guests from Springer for coming, and especially you, Federica, for a very interesting and useful presentation. Thank you.
Давайте
Леночка, дорогая, простите, я была Спасибо, обязательно сегодня заеду, где-то после 4, если можно. Пока еще кто-то будет на работе, я заеду. Хорошо? Спасибо, Николай. Спасибо.
Ну, сейчас подойдем, поэтому вы спросите. Да, конечно, да.
Если сейчас попадется какое-нибудь что-нибудь, хотя может быть.
На третьем. Да, вот внизу. Ой. 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 А вот еще два раза. Подожди, надо.
Не волнуйтесь.
Да, мы увидим.
Это здесь будет презентация, да?
Да, слайдики, там интересные слайдики.
Это вот эта презентация? Да. Как не раз.
Да, у нас где я хожу на семинар, мы вводим судеб. Ты уже сразу заходишь? И уже дальше люди еще где-то уже. Спасибо, мы уже открыли презентацию. Да, причем эта задача
А у нас есть вот группа а есть группа тех, кто просто хочет написать, немножко продвинуть или... Нет, мы встречаемся на набережной. Нет, на Васильевском, на набережной, какая-то театр, что ли, набережная.
Я
все по чистоте.
Нас собрали очень странно, нас собрали
Мне приносит огромную пользу. Поэтому думаю,
что она работает над нашим текстом, работает с я ей просто скажу, обязательно, что я не называю имени, я скажу, что это...
Это не важно, можно будет называть. Ну вот у нас происходит такие штуки.
Вот как раз...
Да. Потом какого-то рода текстики, но больше всего, конечно, мне нравится а здесь главные книги, посвященные вот каким-то частям. Значит, мы сегодня что делаем? Стандартная наша лекция какая? Мы это прочитываем и пишем именно абзац такой респонса. К чему из сказанного я хочу отнестись? Что я посчитал полезным, что слишком очевидным, ну вот каким образом мы реагируем на эти штуки. Некоторые из такого рода статей или глав книги у нас обсуждаются вот совсем небольшим.
А, наверное, там еще какие-то будут. Ну, сейчас разберемся.
И обсуждаем, говоря.
А еще вот боковые вот эти вот старые. Ну, встанем. Главное, если посадить.
Это крайне интересно, потому что некоторые коллеги, у них есть уже опыт публикации и взаимодействия с различными на свою тему. Вот. И от них сообщаются какие-то вещи. Сейчас у нас такая стадия, что по всем занятиям сегодня обсуждаются введения к статьям. Вообще предполагалось изначально, что у нас у каждого есть драфт, который мы работаем. Состояние этого драфта